Hello and welcome to episode 296 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewV. And join me as always is the glorious League Freak. You can also find on Twitter at League Freak. How you going there, mate?
Going very well, Andrew. How are you?
Well, it's an outrage.
Why are you outraged?
I don't know. I think the media got to me.
Controversy.
Yeah, controversy. Outrage.
The big story.
The big story. Yes.
The big story.
Big story. Yeah. No, I'm trying to conflate a big story. I can't think of one.
Yeah, there's I like to take events that are happening and turn them into something that they're not, and then try and build something around that. And if something hasn't actually happened, I just make up a fake scenario and just gibber on about that for 5 minutes.
That's always a good plan. Look, I think the big story that I can take out of today is my daughter. She wanted some nuggets from Macca's.
Yes,
as some people do.
Yeah,
Jack Bird, huge fan. So we get there and we got the nuggets, and as we're driving off, no tomato sauce.
Well,
fucking saga. No, I mean, she was fine. She didn't care. She just went, I just eat chicken nuggets. But it's a fucking saga.
ACCC.
Oh, mate. This shit wouldn't happen at Hungry Jack's.
No, it wouldn't. I'm trying to think of anything I could conflate into a big story that happened in my day.
I'd just like to say that this is probably the only podcast that has used the word conflate 3 times within the first minute.
Yeah, conflate. I don't think I ever say the word conflate normally, hey?
No, we're up to 6 times we've said conflate. Yeah. I'm not going to stop counting the times we say conflate now.
Conflate.
Yeah, it's starting to sound weird.
Yeah.
Usually we drop in the other C word, but there you go.
Yeah, we don't say cunt anymore on the podcast.
No, we've moved on from that.
Yes. Yeah, it's I watching the footy this weekend, and it's funny because there were some really good games, interesting games, and then the commentary teams and the halftime teams and stuff, they were carrying on like a bunch of cunts, Andrew.
It was for some reason, this is a bit that I find amusing, about it all, is this started last year.
Yeah.
Is at halftime of every game and at the end of every game, especially when you've got Saturday and Sunday, you've got another game coming up.
Mm-hmm.
There was always, we've got breaking news or we've got some big thing or something's developing or some sort of major story. I think you don't need to try and keep us attached to the TV. Mm-hmm. We're a captured audience.
Mm-hmm.
We are fish in a barrel.
Yes. So
you don't need to sell shit to us. We're already tuned in and we're not going anywhere because we're rugby league fans. So just, scale it back a bit.
Yeah, and it was interesting because, there was a game today I was watching, and the co-commentator for the main commentator told the co-commentator to calm down. And, when you're a main commentator, that you kind of want to build yourself up with the game. But this co-commentator was, saying, just calm down, because they were running away with themselves. And it's that's where we're at now. And as you say, everything we've got a developing story. And it turns out that, one of the players, might have, I don't know.
A coach
that's really interesting.
Yeah, coach wasn't happy. Ricky Stewart he's angry in his press conference. And go, well, he's angry all the fucking time. Why is that developing?
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's weird because you watch a footy game. The best example was that South versus Tigers game. And George Burgess, it was Thomas Burgess. Thomas Burgess does an amazing run and he scores a try. But from where he'd scored the try, you couldn't see if he'd actually got it down. And I thought the referee did really well. He was about to award the try, but then he saw play had kind of continued on and allowed it to continue on. And the Tigers took it to the other end of the field and, touched the ball down. And so he went to the video replay to see if the original try had been scored. Turned out it had been. And that's the game. It's game over.
Yeah.
And then straight after, they go straight to the studio and Michael Ennis is calling it a controversial end to the game. And it's That's not what a controversial end to a game is. That was just an end to the game that was exciting. It was fun. I've never seen anything like that before, but it wasn't controversial.
No, I tell you what though, it did highlight the need to put a little bit more information on the big screen when they announced try or no try, because when that try was scored, so what happened is Burgess put the ball down, his hands on the side of the ball as he's planted it down, so they didn't know whether it was bounced or not because it's come free after he's planted it.
Yeah.
And Luke Brooks picked it up and ran at the other end and scored. And so the screen comes up after the bunkers that look at it. It says try, and I'm like, yeah, we know it's a try. Who the fuck to?
Yeah, that's. I never even thought of that. Oh, that's great.
So the ref goes, yeah, it's a try, and everyone's hearing going, we know.
Yeah.
Who's try?
I had somebody on Twitter say to me that, it was only a try to Burgess because they slowed it down and freeze framed it at the point where it looked like he had actually scored a try.
Yeah,
and I was thinking to myself, like, yes, that's exactly what they did. Like, that's the point. Yes, you are right.
That's exactly what has to happen.
So fucking weird. People are weird.
I think I tweeted after that game. I said, when that happened, I said, fuck this. That ending was hilarious.
It was.
Yeah.
Because I tell you what, if in the 5 seconds after he scored, like Burgess scored that try, and you realise play was continuing on, in that 5 seconds, you'd have put all of your money on the fact that he knocked it on, right?
Absolutely.
And I had to. I was like, he's fucked it up and they're going to score and win. Turned it out he hadn't fucked it up.
As soon as I saw him slow it down the very first time,
Yeah.
and I saw his hand was still on the ball when it grounded, I went, yep, that's a try.
Yeah.
And they went to Madge in the coach's box, and he saw exactly the same thing and put his hands on his head and went, yeah, had that, fuck sort of expression on his face.
Yeah.
And everyone else is still going, oh, is it a try? We're going to have to look at another angle. I went, no, it's clearly a try. Like, how is that debatable?
Yeah.
The other thing to come out of that game, and I think some people have got the wrong impression about me a little bit on this one, is I was quite critical of an incident by Latrell Mitchell where he's lashed out with his boot at Luke Garner when he was on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it did look to me as if Latrell was trying to kick him in the face or kick him somewhere because it was quite a deliberate act and quite a bit of a lashing out. And I just said, quite a bit of a dick move by Latrell. He's better than that.
Yeah.
I just want to say, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you'll know that I have absolutely no issue whatsoever laying into my side. I'm as far away from being a parochial supporter as you will get of my club. And I have not yet once criticised anything Latrell Mitchell's done. I've been one of his biggest supporters. So this is not coming from a biased viewpoint in either direction.
Yeah.
But I think that kick that he did, it was like a mule kick. Because it looks like the side of his leg brushed Garner on the face. It's not done anything to Garner. It's basically missed entirely. But I think we need to start looking at whether we should, give points deduction, not a full suspension, because there's been no contact. So you can't charge him for striking. But maybe we can take 50, 60, 70 points off them so that it means they're going to be much more likely to get suspended for the next act that they do on a field that might be even minor. So it's just enough to play in the back of your mind to go, don't be a dickhead, because this could lead to a suspension down the line.
Yeah.
Looks like he's going to get 3 or 4 weeks for that late hit on Nofaluma after he kicked, which was, I looked at that and I thought, I don't think it was intentional. I think what it was sloppy, very lazy, because at the point of contact, he's not even looking at Nofaluma. He's just put his arms up like like when you're doing a bumper sort of thing. And Nofaluma's sort of falling a little bit into it. And he's just hit him high and not really paid attention. I'd call it reckless and lazy. I think probably 3 weeks for the 2 incidents combined would be fair enough. Mm-hmm. But 3 for that alone, I'm not sure.
See, Tyrone, who's a follower of mine on Twitter, he brought this up, and he said that you had a different opinion from me on the incidents, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was nothing in both of them. I think it's play on. I've got no problems with either of them, and I'll tell you why. I think that the kicking one, I think he just was trying to get back into the line, because keep in mind he's a fullback, so it wasn't even about getting just into the line. Like, he's got to get back to fullback, and I think it's just one of those things where you take a step, and then his left leg, I think it was, that looked like he kicked out with, it's still being held onto. So as he's going to do a step, it's sort of, his leg is going to go back because he's trying to pull it forward, but it's back. And I didn't think there was anything at all in that, like nothing. Because I had seen people saying, oh, he's lashed out with his leg. And I was like, oh man, looked at the TV because I was a bit distracted at that time. And there was just nothing in it. I thought, what are people going on about? And then I kind of agree with you on the other incident. I think he was just bracing himself, not even looking at the ball that had gone behind him, and it was just two players collided. It wasn't intentional. It was just a collision between two players that the ball had passed them both by, and I thought there was nothing in that either. Like, I was kind of shocked that he got a charge.
Because he's made contact with the head, though, he's going to have to be suspended. I mean, that's just the way the game is now, and that's the way the judiciary works now. He's made contact with the head. It's sloppy. He's going to have to be suspended for that. That's just the way it'll be.
See, and I don't understand why we're doing that. Like, if there's what is the reason for suspending somebody when it's just like, it's not like he was reckless. If he's reckless, I understand. You suspend someone and it's like a lesson. But when it's just like an accidental collision between two players that the ball's gone and, they were kind of he was looking like behind him almost. I don't see what any sort of suspension would do for him or for the other player. I just think it was...
Well, I think it's because now, the head is sacred, so to speak, in rugby league. You don't go and hit it because, a head can't put arms up to protect it when the hands are busy. So it's constantly exposed. So, and we know the impacts of CT and stuff like that. So it's, I think it's just one of those common things. You just don't strike the head. I mean, we saw it in the game today where Valentine Holmes sidestepped one of those Bulldogs players. I forgot his name.
Hetherington.
And Hetherington flung his arm out. It was an old-fashioned coat hanger, and he got marched straight away.
Yeah.
I'm confident saying I don't think Hetherington had any intention of hitting Holmes around the head like he did. So you could say that was an accidental act by Hetherington, but you can't allow that to stay. You can't allow that to go unpunished. And it's the same with Latrell. You just can't go up and do that. Even though that's an accident and stuff like that, you just can't do that.
But with Hetherington, I can say it's reckless, right? For two reasons. Number one, he's got form. He's one of those players that is going to give away dumb penalties and do stupid shit like that. And, like, if somebody steps you and you fling your arm straight out and it's at their head height, like, that is reckless, right? And it was like an old-fashioned coat hanger. It reminded me of the good old days. I remember the good old days. But
when you could give people absolute, brain issues for the rest of their lives, and it was just play on.
Yeah, when
the good old days.
Halfback was having a good game, and you just take his head off, and
you just pick him up and drive him headfirst into the ground. Back when speed tackles were legal, that was fine. Good old days.
The good old days.
Yeah, just jog it off, mate.
Yeah,
everyone will laugh at him as they run around. Completely cussed and falling over everywhere like a clown. That was hilarious.
Sponge. Yeah, it's great. But. Yeah, I just think that one's reckless and one's an accident. I don't know. I think that sometimes I understand we've got to get rid of contact with the head, but man, sometimes it just happens. It's no one's fault. It's just a collision.
I know, but the thing is, the game has to be seen to be taking a hard line on that sort of stuff, and so that's why it's impossible for Latrell to get out of being suspended for the hit on Nofaluma.
Why do you hate Latrell Mitchell so much? I think that's the real thing. This is a big story.
Outraged. I'm outraged. I made one tweet about it, but I'm outraged.
Yeah, it's weird how
And then I moved on with some other stats or something like that. I was outraged.
it's weird how you can tweet something like, I didn't think that was a try. And then, like, you're just watching the game, you look down at your tweets, and there's 20 replies going, you're a fucking dickhead. And it's like, I wasn't fucking dying on this hill, man. I just didn't think it was a try.
Let's quickly address this. Like, Twitter has been really aggressive for a while, especially the last 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And I did make a mention on there a couple of days ago saying it's amazing how offended and triggered some people get just by me posting a few rugby league stats. It's just proof that anybody can be offended by anything.
Yeah, I've seen
footy stats.
Like, they're literally black and white stature. It's not like you're saying, I think that Team A is bad and here are the stats. You're just going like, you can be like, the statistics are that the Bulldogs have not won a game this year. And people will get fucking angry at it. And it's like, it's a fucking fact.
Yeah, there's no commentary with it. It's just like, here's some facts.
Yeah.
And they just go nuts. It doesn't upset me or worry me in any way whatsoever. I find it absolutely hilarious how upset some people get. One of the classic responses is, I'll get some people saying, if I put up a stat about how bad someone's coached, like the Trent Barrett one, which I need to update now.
Yeah.
How many games have you coached?
Yeah.
I was like, how's that even fucking relevant? And then there'll be another one, how many games have you played? I think you can't say that knowing that nearly every single person has been critical of something that they've never done before in their life. How many people go through their lives and never once criticize a politician? Yeah. And yet none of them have been Prime Minister or a politician. Why all of a sudden you throw on that bloody, absolutely moronic bullshit at me? We're all allowed to be critical of stuff.
The one that every Panthers fan gets, it's like, oh, we're top of the ladder. Yeah, but you lost the grand final and you're not going to win it this year. It's like, shut up. Just shut up, you idiot. And it's like, I posted a joke. It was a self-deprecating joke too. I can't even remember what it was. And people started sending me the punchline. And it's like, yeah, I know the punchline. I was the one that set the joke up on my behalf against me. You don't have to give me the punchline, man.
Everything's got to be a dot to dot.
Yeah, it's like, yes. Like, what am I supposed to say? Yes, you are correct. You got it. It's like, fuck.
You're supposed to reply with, you complete me.
That's what I'm going to do from now on. You complete me. If you get a tweet from me and it says you complete me, you got to know I'm taking the piss out of you.
Exactly right. Oh boy, it's definitely been an interesting week there.
Yeah.
Now we work. I was just going to bring this up. We were obviously critical of the whole 2-point field goal bullshit. We've now had 3 of them kicked in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, as soon as we said it'll never get worked, never get used.
And there was a moment during a game, I think it might have been the Sharks Knights game, when the Sharks had almost got back in front, I think. And they had this amazing defensive set, and they kept the Knights inside their 10-metre area for about 4 tackles.
Mm.
And there was a part inside me that was shitting itself going, fuck, Knights are going to kick a 20-40 here.
Yeah.
And then they didn't do it. I was like, oh, thank Christ for that.
Yeah, and in that South versus West Tigers game, like, that 2-point field goal was crucial. Like, it was a game. Yeah, exactly. So, look, I still think it's stupid. I find it dumb, but it's there now and it's being used. I don't think it adds anything to the sport at all. And I think that when you change something fundamentally, like the number of points you get from doing things, I don't like that at all.
I'll tell you why I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with the West Tigers South game because, I went into that match thinking the Tigers are going to lose by 50.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with the result, even though they lost by 4. It's caused so much extra work on Rugby League Project for something that's probably going to get rolled back in about 18 months' time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's the Super 8s of the NRL. So much headache, so much bullshit for something so entirely pointless. Well, it's not pointless. It's worth 2 points, but it's stupid. Stupid idea.
Yeah, I hate it. Nathan Cleary kicked one, and I hate it. It's dumb. It's like, oh yeah, that's worth 2 points. Fuck off.
It's moronic. Now, that's a nice segue for this next bit.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of moronic, ARLC Commission Chairman Peter V'landys has used one of the most emotional and memorable days in the game's history. Now, I'm still trying to figure out what day that was.
Yeah, what would it have been? I don't know.
Because I was thinking, well, it's not the anniversary, and not that the game never celebrates this, but it's not the anniversary of the very first games that were played in Premiership history, which was the 20th of April. We're 2 days away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that. So I don't know, given the fact that I'm not emotional, and I don't know what the fuck they're talking about as far as memorable, tells me as an historian that it can't have been that emotional or memorable.
Yeah, I missed it. I don't know why it's emotional and memorable.
In the game's history. No, I couldn't think of what it is. Anyway, to declare the code is on a mission to return footy to Sydney suburban grounds. V'landys said
when we left. Do you remember when we left the suburban grounds, Andrew?
Yeah, when was that?
I don't know. We're still there.
That's right. V'landys said the code was working on a strategic plan that would ensure every Sydney club would avoid ever having to take games away from their local area and largest supporter base in the suburbs. Great news for South Sydney and the Sydney Roosters.
Mm-hmm.
The Sydney Roosters will be playing out of that very famous venue out at Bondi.
Yep.
That they never ever used in their entire history.
Not once.
And South Sydney will be looking like they'll be returning to Redfern.
Redfern Oval return for Souths. I guess we're going to have to bring back a team to play at North Sydney Oval.
Wow, steady.
Yeah, let's not do that.
We're just taking current teams back to their local venues. We're not going to bring back old teams to justify the use of old venues.
I'm trying to think it's really only the Bulldogs that have to leave Belmore. They're the only ones I can think that have really left a ground. And if you've been to Belmore and you've managed to snag one of the 10 parking spots there, you probably understand why they can't play at Belmore.
Yeah. South haven't played at Redfern since 1996. And they only used it a few times that year.
Yeah.
3 times that year. And that was the first time since they officially left in 1987. So I think that might have been because of some issue with venues or something like that they went back there. But yeah, they might have to go back there. But we'll go on. He said it's all about tribalism. It's all about your suburb, and it's all about your team, V'landys told 2GB. At Henson Park, it shows why you need suburban grounds. The fans want to be able to walk to their facility. They want to be tribal, and we're not going to give up until we've got all teams playing out of suburban grounds in Sydney.
What NRL team plays at Henson Park? That's like saying, it's all about fucking Wayland Reserve. No, it's not. No one plays there.
The unofficial home of the, you know who they are, future expansion team.
Who?
Our team.
Yeah, the Mad Quackers.
Yeah.
I thought we'd picked somewhere worse.
We probably have. I'll tell you what, I'm liking the look of Wayland Reserve. I think that's got it's got a bit of charm about it.
Yeah, charm.
Yeah.
You've stepped over drug needles too, I see. Yeah, it's weird. Why is he talking about Henson Park in the NRL?
I know. And when I think of suburban grounds, I tend to usually think about grounds that have got a hill on it.
Yeah.
And now he's talking about, so he's talking about playing out of suburban grounds in Sydney. He says, I was very proud to walk into Bankwest last week at Parramatta.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a massive stadium. It's such a great facility. It's got the latest technology. You're close to the action. You're well looked after, but that's just one club. You need to do it for all. Yeah. We need to have all of that great facilities at Leichhardt Oval. How much money is that going to cost?
Well, how much? I think it cost, was it 370 million? It was something like that for Bankwest Stadium.
Okay, so if we upgrade Leichhardt, Campbelltown, Cogra, Shark Park, Brookvale,
Penrith,
who else is left?
Belmore,
Redfern,
yep.
That's it. So there's 8 venues. Mm-hmm. That's only about a lazy $2.5 billion to give them all the same sort of venue that Parramatta's got.
That sounds reasonable. I think the taxpayer will be very happy to foot the bill for that. Yeah. So that, especially the one at Cogra, because they can use that for 6 games a year.
Well, once Cronulla's got their own.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Yeah, and by the way, I'd love to know how many people actually walk into games.
All of them.
Apparently.
All of them.
Like, this guy thinks that we still live in fucking, when it was black and white TV and everyone would rock up to the showground to watch the match of the round.
Mate, look, I'm looking forward, quite honestly, to walking to my team's next home game.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, it will take me 7.5 days to do it.
Mm-hmm. How many kilometres was it, by the way?
890.
That's fair. Fair. Yeah.
It's a casual stroll.
Yeah.
I might be able to find a bit of a shortcut along the way through the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
That might knock maybe 150 k's out of it. Although the going might be a bit slower.
Yeah, well, look, if Hannibal could do it with a bunch of elephants, you can do it.
There we go. So, I'm looking forward to that stroll, and I hope it's a win, because it'll make the walk back home so much more easier.
Yeah.
Because, it will be somewhat downhill. There's a bit of uphillish, but there'll be mostly downhill, I assume. So, yeah, that's a almost 1,800 kilometre round trip for me by foot.
That seems reasonable to me.
It'll take me just over 2 weeks to complete.
By the way, while the head of the Australian Rugby League Commission is talking about having suburbs in Sydney catered for with brand new $100 million facilities, just curious, like, what does that do for rugby league fucking anywhere else on the continent?
I think the official viewpoint there is fuck them.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems about right.
Because as we've seen in the media over the last however long Peter Vellini's been around for, feels like a decade, Sydney is the only place that matters in the entire world. He spent quite a fair bit of time completely shitting on Melbourne.
Yeah.
And also completely I'm not saying I'm not here to defend Melbourne, fuck that. But he's forgetting the fact that, while he shits on Melbourne, he's kind of forgotten the fact that Melbourne does have a rugby league team as well.
Yeah.
So he's kind of crapping in his own nest, so to speak, there. It's a bit stupid if you ask me. I wish he'd stop bitching and moaning about Melbourne and bragging about Sydney and just went about focusing on making rugby league a game that's played outside of Sydney.
Yeah, and, let's move the game beyond suburbs. How about that?
Yeah, that'd be good. Because right now, the way he's talking about rugby league, he's sounding like someone who runs Super League.
Well, yeah, he is. And, the thing is, like, the game has to progress. If the game doesn't progress, it's standing still. That means it's going backwards compared to everyone else. And, the days have been like, I want to play for my suburb. They're over, man. It's done. It's finished. It's just over.
Yeah, exactly.
How many of these fucking Sydney teams are barely making it? Manly's dying in the arse. The Bulldogs are, like, look at the Bulldogs. Just look at them. I don't even have to say anything. The St. George Illawarra Dragons, they split their games between 2 stadiums. And, even then, it wasn't that long ago that they needed loans from the NRL to get by. And then they sold themselves to a private owner.
Yep.
Like, can we just fucking look at having good facilities? Because my club, right, it plays at Penrith. it's called the Penrith Panthers. Things just line up. But Penrith's a massive area. Like, it's not really the suburb of Penrith. It's like the giant Penrith district sort of thing that they represent. And I want a Bankwest Stadium there. But it's, I can see if the taxpayer is going to be like, fuck you guys. Don't need a Bankwest Stadium.
Of course. Then the taxpayer is not going to be interested in spending another $350 million on another football stadium in Sydney, let alone another $2.5 billion.
Yeah.
That's nuts. That's, you've got to look at this in the eyes of Peter V'landys, mate. You've got to realise that Penrith is only looking after Penrith. You're sitting there thinking that they're including fucking Emu Plains and Cambridge Park and Kingswood, mate. You are so wrong. That's not Penrith's area. Penrith's area is Penrith. That's it.
Yeah.
No one from Jordan Springs is allowed.
I agree.
No one west of the Nepean River is allowed. Fuck you all.
You're from Falcon Bridge? Go fuck yourself.
Exactly.
They're not called Falcon Bridge. They're the Penrith Panthers.
That's right. Penrith only. No one else. I don't know what they do with the West Tigers because there's no suburb called Wests. I don't know what they do about that. They've kind of stuffed themselves there. Maybe Jameson Town is covered by West Tigers.
No, that's well, it's not really. Jameson Town's a real weird one. It's like, it's really just Penrith, but for some reason it's Jameson Town, and it's like, it's not big at all. I got a problem with Jameson Town. I do. It's like you're just Penrith.
Did you want to thrash it out or what?
You're just Penrith. You're not fucking Jameson Town. It's just a park, really.
Just a park.
It's just a fucking park.
A couple of swings and a slipper dip.
Yeah, pretty much, and a skateboard, and those concrete weird things that for the skateboarders.
Oh yeah, which skateboarders don't use, but people who like tagging have used it as a
graffiti artist.
Graffiti, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. One last thing he said here is you need to do it for Manly, you need to do it for the Tigers and the Bulldogs, you need to do it for the Panthers. They're the only teams he recognised in Sydney. That's going to be one of the main objectives of the Commission, to get these suburban grounds updated and go back to the good old days of tribalism. The good old days.
I love the good old days. Remember the good old days when all the suburban teams were going so great?
Yeah, I remember the good old days when Souths were at their absolute prime and drawing nearly 10,000 people to Redfern.
Yeah, I remember the good old days when, the league was dying in the arse with these suburban teams, and the Australian Rugby League realised they needed to expand the competition or just die. Those are the good old days.
Those are the good old days. It's fantastic, those good old days. 10,000 at a venue was called an absolute blockbuster. Now it's called average.
Yeah.
And that's with COVID still, slowing things down a bit. So, I fucking hate the good old days commentary.
So do I.
You know what's something I can tell you about one of the good old days?
Yeah.
In a game I recently updated on Rugby League Project from 1946, which I'd assume is back in the good old days. Maybe it's a bit before the good old days.
Yeah.
There was a game that had 50-odd scrums in it and 30-odd penalties in it.
Wow.
Yeah, good old days.
Yeah, that would have been amazing to watch. Really good football.
Fascinating.
They would have had 2-point field goals back then too.
They did indeed.
Yeah, they would.
He's already got us on the track. Next thing you know, trials will be worth 3 points to try and encourage people to kick 2-point field goals.
You know the other thing, we're almost at a point where I've got unlimited tackles as well.
Well, that's true. The set restarts have done that now.
Mm.
So yeah, he's taken us back there.
Yeah, the good old days.
People are eating it up.
Yeah.
We left that for a reason, and the game exploded in popularity for a reason. Why are we going back to it for?
It's not like any of the expansion teams have been successful, though. I mean, the likes of the Brisbane Broncos.
Well, they got the spoon last year,
Cowboys,
so they're running near last.
Melbourne.
They cheated to win.
Newcastle.
Well, they got action on the comp after 2 years of existence. That was another Newcastle side, though.
New
I'm
Zealand
doing my best
Warriors.
here.
Look, what I'm trying to say is none of these teams have added to the competition. Let's just go back to having a suburban Sydney comp, and we just have these suburban teams, and I think that there's too many people at games. I would like to go back to the days when we would get 4,000 to a game.
Yeah, we need to really block the turnstiles
Mm.
and make sure that no more than 8,000 get into a venue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, that's what the good old days were.
Yeah. Do you reckon Peter V'landys has ever walked to a footy game? Ever?
Well, he allegedly walked to Bankwest. I dare say that was from his limousine to the front entrance.
Exactly.
Or maybe he just got off his horse. Do you reckon he probably rode Winks to the game?
Is Wink still around?
I don't fucking know. I don't care about horse racing.
Yeah, neither do I. Isn't it funny when you'll be watching a game and you get one of these people saying, "Oh, he's tried to score a try, but he was beaten like the second favourite, and
Canterbury.
Flemington on the weekend,"
Yeah.
and it's like we're not all degenerate gamblers like you, buddy. Just stick to calling the football.
Yeah. Just keep the football references about rugby league.
Yeah.
That's what we're good with. We follow that. Yeah, it was an interesting round aside from all that drama.
Yeah, all the massive dramas and controversy.
The Panthers had quite a much bigger fight than they expected when they took on Brisbane. They still won. But Brisbane gave them a bit of a shake. It's the best Brisbane have looked in quite a while, to be honest.
Yeah, got to give Kevin Walters some credit. There are a few teams this round that their coaches have brought something extra out in them, and you have to give the coaches credit because, the Panthers side are far more talented than the Broncos, and the Broncos really took it to the Panthers and made them really work for it. I thought the Panthers were a little bit flat. I was going to say they can't all be winners, but, they can, actually. It's really cool.
Except in the grand final. I just had to put a bit of rage in there, keep with the theme.
Oh, no, I get it. I heard you.
I'll tell you what, though. The Broncos used quite a much bigger bench than what Penrith did in that game.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Walters has finally started to figure out how long his big men can last for in one stint.
Yeah.
Because his usage of Matt Lodge and Payne Haas in that game, he made sure they weren't absolutely busted before it brought them off.
Yeah, it was much better.
Yeah, it helped them an awful lot in the back end of the game. And they stayed within reach for, almost the entirety of the game. I've got to say, though, Crichton doesn't look too comfortable at fullback yet.
No, he doesn't. He looks, first of all, he doesn't have the urgency that a fullback has to have. He gets found about 5 metres out of position when a team goes cross field. That's an eternity. That's too long.
Yeah.
Under the high ball, he's worrying, and in attack, he just doesn't have it as a fullback. Like as a centre, he's fine. You watch him and you're like, man, get it to Crichton. But as a fullback, you want to shake him and say, dude, wake up. Like this isn't what we need from you. We need you to be really switched on for 80 minutes, and he hasn't got that. And that's a worry. I never thought I'd want Edwards back. I know that Nadine feels the same. We sort of hate ourselves for wanting Edwards to be back as soon as possible. But yeah, Crichton I wonder how, what's his name on the wing? Staines.
I was going to say, given how strong Brian has been running of late, I mean, he's been making huge meters.
Mm-hmm.
And he's pretty good under the high ball. I wouldn't mind seeing Brian at fullback. Put Crichton back at centre and Momorowski on the wing.
Yeah,
I don't think it'd unbalance it too much. Because my biggest fear, I think, at the moment is Crichton starts to lose confidence in his game.
Yes.
And I think that's a big worry for the Panthers' attack. And so I think the experiment of him at fullback kind of needs to stop.
Yeah, I do too. See, I would try Staines at fullback. You know who Brian reminds me of?
Who's that?
He reminds me of a stronger version of Michael Hancock.
Yeah.
With how Michael Hancock, he never gave up in a tackle until that tackle was finished. He reminds me of that. So I think that he's like Michael Hancock.
Fair enough. The only player I've ever known that was like Michael Hancock was probably Paul Gallen, and I say that in the sense that they both had that low center of gravity and that immense leg drive.
Yeah.
And so they were just so hard to get to the ground.
Yeah.
When you finally got them there, it was so hard to keep them down and slow to play the ball down because they were just so strong in the legs and the hips. They'd just get back up and have a quick play the ball anyway.
Yeah.
So that's what made those two guys pretty tough to defend.
Yeah. Except Michael Hancock was natural.
Wow, yeah. All three knees. We move on to we're just going a quick recap here. Melbourne, far too good for the Roosters.
Yeah, that was an interesting game, hey?
Yeah.
That was a really interesting game. I think the Roosters, poor old Roosters, they've had a couple of games where they just keep on getting injuries on top of injuries on top of injuries. And it's just taken its toll. Like, I can't fault that they're putting in and all that, but it's just at some point it becomes too much. And I've got to say, I think their season is pretty much done already, just on the basis that they've got too many injured players.
I can't think of a team that's ever lost both halves and two hookers before round 6.
Yeah.
Because they're now on their third hooker for the season.
Yeah,
and an entirely different halves combination that they never would have used for the start of the year.
Yeah, I never would have even dreamt that that's who they would play. Sam Walker, he's a handy little player. He's Ben Walker's son. And I always like the players that their fathers played first grade because they've been in this environment their whole life. Same thing with Ivan Cleary and Nathan Cleary.
Mitchell Pearce.
Hey?
Mitchell Pearce.
Yeah, Mitchell Pearce. Look, same sort of thing. They've been there. They've been in those big game experiences. They've seen what it's like to, they've been in the dressing sheds their whole life. That nothing sort of overawes them. They've seen it all before, sort of thing. And there's something to be said about that. And you find that their level of toughness is like, it's really, really high. Like it's at a different level than most players. And seeing Sam Walker, like he doesn't look like the sort of dude that should be up to playing first grade. He looks very lean. He looks like an under-20s player, to be honest with you. But he goes out there, gets stuck in. He's a very handy player. I think he might be the player that they can actually groom for the future at the Roosters. And it's funny that those players sort of come around when you least expect it sometimes. And I think that he's the one that they need to stick with him and see how he goes for the rest of the year. They haven't really got too much of a choice because of all of their injuries, but I've been really impressed by him. But yeah, that game against the Storm, I think that the Storm, the thing that come out of it for the Storm for me is they've got to go with Harry Grant. They've got to start Harry Grant, and they've got to make that commitment to him. And it's going to be awkward, but it's time.
Yeah, I fully agree. He's just too good to be an interchange player. You need him on the field for 80 minutes. We saw that last year.
Yeah, and look, the Storm, when he was out there, looked $1 million. Yeah. And I'm watching this team and I'm thinking, I need to set that if they want to really set up for the future. Pappenhausen, he's all set. They've got Harry Grant there at hooker, he's all set. Munster, I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up going to that second Brisbane team, but make it as difficult as possible for him to go to that second Brisbane team. Say to him, look, dude, you're really going to leave the Storm and this amazing situation. They've got to get that all set up and ready because they could be a great team for another. As I was saying on Twitter, as soon as Harry Grant retires, the Storm are stuffed. And, how many years have we got of Harry Grant left?
Plenty.
Exactly.
Cronulla and the Knights. Interesting game that, because the Knights looked to be in full control for about 50 minutes or so. And the Sharks put on a bunch of tries in short time to get back in front, and I think the Knights scored one at the end.
Yeah.
The Sharks, they're in a weird position, I think, coming to this match because, John Morris had been, ditched during the week.
Mm-hmm.
So they were either going to go one or two ways, and that was they're either going to turn up and put on a big performance, or they're going to play like crap. And I don't think the players are going to drop their shit and the season's going to be over because of this, because there's nearly a dozen players at that club who are playing for a contract next year.
Yeah.
So they can't afford to play like shit because their career's hanging on it. And that's the one thing that probably works in the Sharks' favour for ditching Morris when they did. They know they've got these players back into a corner. If you play like shit, you're not going to get a contract. And if you do, you're not going to get paid as much as you think you would. But
yeah, exactly.
The one player they need to lock up who's off contract is William Kennedy.
Yeah, he's playing great footy.
Yeah, he's come along brilliantly so far this year.
Yeah, like even just from round one, he's got so much more confident. The Newcastle Knights really badly needed that win because they've been in a bad place for a few weeks now, and they kind of dragged it out at the end, which was good. I was a little bit shocked that they got back into the match. Actually, it looked like the Sharks were just going to run over the top of them, but they pulled it out, and they've got a lot of injuries themselves. The Knights. It's weird how some teams just get smashed by injuries from time to time. The Knights,
even the Sharks, I think the Sharks have got a few centres out as well, and a few wingers.
Yeah.
It's so much so that, Connor Tracy, who's a half, was playing on the wing in this game.
Yeah, it sucks when your team falls apart so early in the season because of injuries.
Mm.
But yeah, it was a much needed win for Newcastle, and their season is at a really interesting point because you feel like if they get things back on track and they get a couple of players back, they'll be a finals team, like 7th and 8th. That's what they've got to be aiming for. But if it goes really, really bad, I could see them down the bottom of the ladder. And then you've got to start looking at everything because it's not like they haven't spent money. It's not like they haven't re-signed players and tried to make it all work again. And it actually made me think about when you've got and all sorts of sport teams, when you've got a sports team that absolutely tanks, that they're not just poor personnel-wise, but they're beyond that, how difficult it is to come back from that, because you're still going to have remnants of those games where you've given up and where you got thrashed week after week. That's still part of the club's DNA. And to get that out of your system is really difficult. You might have one bad season, but when you've had it season after season of being terrible, to come back from that, it's almost like you've got to churn through a couple of generations of players before you really get it out of your system. And I feel like we're seeing a little bit from that from the Knights. I feel like we're seeing it from the Bulldogs right now. And I'm seeing it in other sporting teams. There's a bunch of NBA teams who they've changed their playing staff. They've got, high draft picks and stuff, but because they've lost for so long, you just can't get that out of your system that easily. It's not just a matter of replacing everyone. It's got to be more than that. And it's really interesting that you have those hangovers. And Newcastle, I think, they're still affected by the hangovers of still being a terrible team for so long.
Yeah, it's possible. I think there's a fair bit of merit to all of that. I think the Sharks too, I think all they did is they showed that the tumultuous week played a bit of a role on them.
Mm-hmm.
They played pretty well. They just considered a try about 5 minutes from full time, which sunk them. So they were right in it. It's not like they dropped their bundle or anything like that.
No.
It's I don't think they're done and dusted. I mean, next week they play the Bulldogs, so I think that'll be a test. If they lose to the Bulldogs next week, then we'll go, you know what, they've dropped their shit. But they should come out and win that one comfortably.
They should smash them, yeah.
Canberra suffered their second loss in successive weeks to a top 8 side by 20 points. They lost last week to Penrith 30-10. They lost this week 35-10 to Parramatta.
Yeah, Canberra is done. I'm calling it.
You know, I think the thing that for me in this one, Josh Hodgson.
Terrible.
He has got so much slower in the last month. His leg speed has just dropped off. I don't know what's going on. He's got to be carrying an injury because they've got no speed out of dummy half.
Yeah, and when Starling comes on, they're a different side.
Yeah, so much snappier.
Yeah, they're worrying. But I think there's a few things going on at Canberra. I think, the rule changes don't help them because they've got a big pack. They get nothing out of Hodgson, out of dummy half. That's a problem. Whiten's form is terrible. Williams as a halfback, it's not working. I'm sorry. We've been talking about this for a long time. I know you rate him higher than I do, but it's just not happening. And then you've got one of their centres who they love, who can't play defence to save his life and never has been able to. And it's like, how long are you going to love these players that are fucking bad for the club?
Yeah, loyalty does that, I guess. As we've discussed with the West Tigers.
Yeah.
And let's go there now. Tigers lost to South in Golden Point 18-14 because the Tigers always lose in Golden Point. Look, I'm not going to rubbish the club too much on this one because their defence was immensely better than it was for the last 15 games. Mm-hmm. This is the first time since round 10 last year where they beat Brisbane 48-0 that the Tigers have managed to keep their opposition team under 20.
Jesus.
The problem with the Tigers, and it's the only big issue that I'm seeing, is there's fuck all teamwork in that side for the majority of the game. You see bunches of guys just doing their own thing half the time. There was a try that South very nearly scored through Alex Johnson, and it highlighted this so well because the West Tigers line moved up, as it should do, but James Roberts was 2.5 steps behind for some reason in moving up. But because he's fast, he quickly ran back up in line. But at the same time that was taking place, Talau on his wing saw that he had moved up. So Talau came up and in to try and cover the opposition centre, which meant that when the ball finally got out there, the centre had 2 players on him and the winger was unmarked.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the final pass was ruled forward, so it got disallowed. But it's just little things like that where the players either side of Roberts just said, "Oi, move up quicker," or, come with us. Or they should have stayed in line with him so that they still stayed manned up. But instead, the winger made that decision to come up and in, and it created an overlap. And the West Tigers created that overlap against themselves.
Yeah.
Like, they were all numbered up properly. There was no extra man. They gave them that extra man. And it's dumb little things like that where there's no communication and no one's working with one another. That's a huge problem. The other thing right now too, James Roberts' defence, nearly every aspect of it, is complete dog shit. Mm-hmm. He needs to be moved to the wing. Simple as that. If he's going to be in that side, he needs to be on the wing where he's just got a sideline on one side that's going to do half the work for him. And on the other side, if he can't make a tackle, he's pushing people back infield to where all the other defenders are. Because right now he's not sticking to tackles. He's very grabby. Mm-hmm. He's not using his shoulders when he tackles much. His reads are horrible at times. And I think teams are starting, part of the Tigers' bad form is because teams are targeting that. They see that. They run at him.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid of the contact. His technique is poor. His reads are poor. And he's becoming hesitant because of it.
He's like a rich man's Jared Crocker.
He probably is. He's a fast Jared Crocker. That's pretty much it. He can't kick goals. So I don't know. The Tigers have got this issue with their back line at the moment. They've brought in these players. One of them can't defend, and the other one can't play first grade because he can't help but try and look after his little brother.
The crazy thing, and I didn't see the first half. I saw bits and pieces. Second half, I saw everything. Crazy thing for me was that Mbai was doing a better job at guiding the team around the field than Brooks.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which was, to me, that's like horrifying.
No, see, it's what I was saying though before, is the fact that Brooks doesn't know how to run a side.
Mm.
You know, you could put Bryce Gibbs at halfback. He'd have more of an idea because he at least tells people what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's how poor Brooks is.
Yeah, it's shocking. And the thing is too, like, this is really his first year where it's like, Luke Brooks, this is your team, and there's no backup. No one's coming to save you. And it has been such an abject failure on his behalf that I'm really shocked by how bad he's been. And like they really tried hard against Souths. And it was really only, I mean, there was a play where in defence Dewey ran up and just left this big gap for Souths to run through and score. And really, that was the game. Like, that was the difference.
That was atrocious. He even knew when he ran out of the line that he went too far. And that was, they walked through that gap so easily.
It was really, really bad. But they tried their asses off. They did their best. And the effort was there. And they pushed Souths really, really close. But, you know, at least the effort's there now. Like, you can cop a loss when the effort's there. It's when you get those give-up games that they just, you know, they
switch off.
Yeah, that's when you can't cop it.
Yeah. The thing that was noticeable, too, in the second half of that game was Brooks was feeding the ball to Dewey whenever the Tigers were in an attacking situation.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't even trying to set things up. He just went, you have it.
Yeah.
And so he's just a distributor. And I want more from Brooks if he's going to be wearing the 7 on his back than that. Like, if we can't rely on him to try and create something close to the line, and he's not like he's a poor creator. He's had plenty of try-assists every year, even when the Tigers have been poor or he's been in poor form. Try-assists have never been something that he struggled to achieve. In this game, he wasn't trying that much at all to help the team get points. He was just dishing it off to Dewey. And yeah, it wasn't that big an issue because Dewey was quite creative and he was, you know, he got a few repeat sets for the Tigers. His short kicking game was pretty good, so it was effective enough, but he was always parked out on the right-hand side.
But there is a point where, like, look, if I was Michael Maguire this week, I'd sit Brooks down and say, dude, I'm really considering dropping you because you're just not doing your job.
I think that has to happen. There's a young bloke playing reserve grade at the moment who's been in good form. I'd be bringing him in for a game. We brought in Simpkin for this game to replace Little, and Little hadn't been playing poorly.
No.
But Simpkin he's just a little bit sharper.
Mm-hmm.
The passes are a little bit quicker, and it just meant that the Tigers were able to get a little bit more momentum. It's enough to keep them in the game the whole time. He did a mountain of defence. He had over 50 tackles in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the look of him. I mean, I know it's only one game, and I'd like to see him play a few more, but the first game, I think that was pretty impressive what he put in. I'd like to see more of him there. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a few more changes are made. Madge keeps turning players from right side to left side and back again every week these days, so I don't know what he's working on there. We'll see what happens, though. The Tigers have got Manly next week. So that's an interesting one. That's a very winnable game.
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of Manly, they completely dicked the Titans 36-0.
Yeah, I didn't see this game. It was one of those ones where I heard the score just after the match, and I was like, what the hell happened? I was filthy because I tipped the Titans. So I can't say anything about this match because I didn't see it.
Basically, Tom Trbojevic came back.
Yeah.
It's funny how... Look, it's not all down to him, but it's funny how when you've got your first string spine intact and on the field, how much better everything else starts to click into place and things start to work because everything's designed to work around those 4 players.
Mm-hmm.
And Foran looked better because of it. Cherry Evans looked better because of it. Everything just seemed to click a little bit better, and it's just that little bit better enough to give them a bit of momentum and get them in front. And the Titans had that element of panic that they've never lost when they start trailing, and they go, right, we need to throw the ball around and score points. And that came back into their game. And I think that's the one aspect of what they did that would frustrate Holbrook more than anything else, is the fact that they reverted back to a bad concept.
Yeah.
So, I didn't see too much of it, but I saw that much to know that Manly, I don't know, they might be a more competitive outfit if they can keep Tom on the field.
And that's the thing. Like, one game so far this year, we'll see how many he lasts for.
Yeah. Last two games, Warriors beat the Dragons 20-14.
Now, I didn't see that one either. That was basically another game where I heard the result afterwards, and I was a little bit shocked because I was very impressed by the Dragons last week against the Eels. But, the Warriors, they're not a bad team this year. Like, there's plenty of seasons where you've thought to yourself, they're better than their results are showing. I think this is the first season where it's like, yeah, you know what? They're not bad. Like, they could, if they keep this up for the rest of the season, they'll make the finals.
Yeah, they played with pretty starch in this game. That was the main thing. And you can tell that they'd watched the way the Dragons played the week before against Parramatta and went, right, we need to live with this game because that's how good these guys are. And at the same time, the Dragons would have looked at how the Warriors played against Manly and lost and gone, oh, we don't need to play as hard against them as we did against Parramatta last week. So they knocked their performance down just a smidge as the Warriors went up a bit, and it was just enough. It's not to say the Dragons were poor, but there was very little creativity coming out of their halves for this entire game. Clune wasn't bad, but pretty much all of their attacking smart came from Dufty at fullback.
Yeah.
And when your attacking force is 3 passes wide of the ruck, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the forwards in this game played pretty well. It was played pretty fast. Everyone was running hard for most of the game, which is bloody impressive to watch. I thought it was a pretty good game, to be honest, all up. But the Warriors deserve that win. There was nothing controversial about that one, although I'm sure the media would say otherwise.
Yeah, there was probably something that oh my God.
Yeah. And the last game was Cowboys beat the Bulldogs 30-18. At one point, the Cowboys were up comfortably here, and the Bulldogs scored a few quick tries and almost made a game out of it. And then Hetherington with his heels hoist.
Yeah, threw his arm out, almost took Valentine Holmes' head off. It was a pretty straightforward send-off.
Yeah.
It was interesting. After he'd been sent off, the Bulldogs started playing aggressively for about a minute and a half, and that was the best minute and a half of their season. But at one point, they managed to get like a 3-man overlap on the Cowboys, and it's like, how is that even possible? And they ended up stuffing it up, of course, but it was like I was laughing my head off. It was just the funniest thing I've ever seen. But look, it was another one of those games for the Bulldogs, just not good enough. The Cowboys team hasn't got much talent in it at the moment, but they played hard footy and they got away with a really good win. Which is great. Then now they've got 2 wins on the board this season, which is at one point you would have been flat out thinking they'd win any games at all. So it's another one of those games where like the coach has lifted the club from a real bad position, and so that was good to see. But the Bulldogs, I mean, it's just not good.
Well, one thing I saw that was interesting on I think it might have been Fox Sports, was saying Todd Payton's side won, but he's carrying on like they lost. And I went, you know what? That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because he expects better and he wants more. And he's been like that since he got there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what that Cowboys side needed. I'll tell you what else was interesting about this game is Cohen Hess played in the middle. He played as a front rower.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't as bad as he had been on the edge because he had to work.
Yeah, he was forced to.
Yeah. that's not a bad idea. The other thing too, which obviously was talking about, was Tormalolo was ruled out of this game because he broke his other hand. And, something in my head says, I'm suspicious now.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, this dude is built like a brick shithouse. Like, and what's he breaking his hand on? Can we get whatever he's breaking his hands on?
Peyton said it was exactly the same bone, but in the other hand. And I went, this sounds suspicious.
Yeah, does a bit.
Is he doing boxing drills at work, but at training, but instead of using boxing gloves, they've just got frying pans tied to his hands. He's got to punch brick walls. Oh, he's broken his other hand. Bugger.
Look, I just go back to when Fox Sports interviewed him a couple of weeks ago about when he broke his first hand, and he was just so happy. He didn't look like a dude that was in a bad place or was upset about. He just looked really, really happy. It does. It feels a little bit. It feels a bit. Listen, we're gonna say you broke your hand. Don't tell anyone. We're just gonna say you broke your hand. Have a rest.
Yeah, I think too, because of that interview he had, the whole narrative about there being some sort of dissent between him and Peyton got dropped immediately because we've heard nothing about it since then.
Yeah.
He was trying to drum up a story, and then all of a sudden they've gone, we can't possibly run it like this when he's absolutely fine with everything that went on and he's happy.
Yeah, I really do. I feel like, and I think we said this. I said this a couple of episodes ago, where Todd Payton, I feel like, sat him down and said, "Listen, I'm going to blow you up in the media. Are you all right with that? Because I'm trying to get something out of these guys around you because they're giving us nothing." And it's like, yeah, no worries. And they're like, "What are you doing the next few weeks? Do you want some weeks off? We're going to break your hand. All right, your hand's going to be broken, and you can have a few weeks off." And then they've probably gone to him this week and said, "Do you want to play this week?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go." And it's only the Bulldogs. We reckon we can beat them without you. Listen, we're going to say you broke out of the hand. Have another few weeks off. Go up to Hamilton Island or something.
Because it's in Tuamalolo's best interest that everybody else in that forward pack starts pulling their fucking weight, because then he doesn't have to do as much, and it will make him more effective when he gets on the field.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to be that opposed to Peyton putting the boot up everybody else on that side.
Yeah, and he can still play, 20 games or something like that. And, they're not going to make the finals this year. They know that. And they've talked about it openly. They don't want to, run him into the ground. They want him to play a very long career at the Cowboys. They want him to play beyond this contract, which still has years to run.
Yep.
And I think that, they're being smart about it. I really do.
No, I think so, though. I think they are too. So yeah, that's the round wrap up that we had no intention of doing.
No, one thing that come out of this round that I've seen way too much of, and it was in the Canberra game. And look, I can't remember the Canberra player it was, but he went up for a kick, he come down, and he landed on Sivo's knee, and he knocked him senseless. He's lying on the ground for about a minute before he got up. He's standing in front of his own trainer, holding his head as the trainer is telling him to stand on one leg and asking him questions. He's literally holding his head. The trainer gave the green light for him to get back into the line, and it was clear he had to come off for a HIA. Now, thankfully, they got him off about 30 seconds later. But we're seeing too many times where trainers are given the green light for a player to get back in the line, and then that player is being taken from the field by an NRL official who said, no, he's got to come off for a HIA. Something's got to be done about it, because the players need to be protected from themselves. When they're getting these head knocks, they're not in the right position to be asking them their opinion. Are you all right? Like, they've just been knocked senseless. And at first I thought he'd come down and hit the ground. And then when I saw he'd hit Sivo's knee with his head and then hit the ground, I was thinking to myself, I would rather fall into planet Earth head first than Sivo's knee. And he didn't come back on the field. Like, he was ruled out for the rest of the game. there's something needs to be done about it, because it is happening way too many times that players are being left on the field for way too long. And I don't know whether the trainers are not really in a position to know if a player should come off the field or not, whether it's the heat of battle, whether the markers that, or the things they get in place to do the players, even in a knocked out state, are able to stand on one leg and things like that. But whatever's happening is not working, and something's got to be done about it, because we're going to see, we've got to look after the players better than that. It's just not good enough.
No, it makes you wonder whether if we've seen a player's taken a head knock, we should just be taking them straight off the field for HIA and assess them off the field. So that it's not done in a hurried manner.
Yep.
And that way it gets done properly, assessed properly, and you move on from there. And that way you don't have to hold the game up either. Just bring them off, put another player on. It's a free swap. If the player is then ruled okay, then the swap, the interchange gets added on. If not, doesn't get added on. It's fine. You carry on. That's kind of the way it works. That's the problem we're always going to get, though, is that trainers are going to be inclined to try and assess as quickly as possible whether they, if there's any way they can keep the player on the field.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the problem is. And so I think if we're going to be smart about HIAs, if someone's taken a head knock of any manner and they're looking sluggish, then take them straight off the field and get them assessed. Simple as that. That way we can assess them in a safe environment, and we can do it at the right speed and not in a hurried manner where mistakes can happen, and it gets done properly. That's just the simple way to look at this thing. Speaking of concussions, there was actually an article out during the week from our good mate, Dr. Alan Pearce.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a conclusion in there which suggested that if a player has been found to have suffered concussion, they should sit out for 4 weeks, close to a month.
Yeah.
In order to be fully, or as fully possible, recovered from the concussion before they go back to any sort of physical contact, training and playing. I think that's a very, very good idea, and it's one that's not going to impact rugby league too heavily. And before anyone sort of complains, but we're going to lose our stars for 4 weeks if they get a head knock, and going, yeah, but you know what? You'll be bringing in new ones to cover for them.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that has really got me this year is, like, we've seen players get knocked senseless, and then they're right to go next week. Now, not everyone's different. Not everyone's the same. Everyone's different is what I meant to say. And, sometimes you'll see a player take a blow. It's like when you see a head clash. Sometimes you'll see two players head clash. One of them is out cold. The other one's just gets up and gets back into the line like nothing happened. Sometimes you'll see a player get knocked out and they're really, really sick. They've got problems that they throw up a lot and they have light sensitivity and things like that. Other players, they get over it quicker. But I just think when a player has copped a really bad head knock and you see them named the next week, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
I do think that maybe and look, I don't know what the markers should be, but I think that there should be some level. I don't know if there's levels of concussion, but I just feel as though there are some head knocks we've seen where players needed a couple of extra weeks on the sideline, and they're not being given that, and that worries me.
We kind of saw it with two Sharks players, Wade Graham and Josh Dugan.
Mm-hmm.
I think Graham had 2 head knocks in 3 weeks, and Dugan had one in 2 successive weeks each.
Mm-hmm.
And they both missed this week's game because the side just went, you know what, that's a few too many. And, they shouldn't have come back so soon after the first one. Because as we've found with some of these players, if they start having a few head knocks, that causes them to miss a game because of concussion. If they have a few of those in the space of a month or even 2 months, they start to become a little bit more regular.
Yeah, it's like a boxer getting a glass jaw after a bunch of knockouts, and you see it. And Jake Friend was a really good example of that. So was Boyd Cordner. Cordner, these last couple of concussions he's got have been and soft is the wrong word, but for a player that has been through as much as he has, when you see him go into a tackle and it looks like his jaw gets grazed and he's out.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at is like, wow, this isn't what he used to be. This isn't the level of abuse he used to take. And it's a worry. And we've got to avoid it getting to that point.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the word is, he's been hit with a few basically innocuous sort of hits. They're not illegal. They're not even necessarily high. I think one of them, he just got put on his back and not slammed hard, just pushed backwards.
Yeah.
The back of his head just bounced off the ground where 99.9% of players would just get up and play the ball and be fine. And he had to go and have a HIA and he failed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, his body and his mentality when it comes to playing the game certainly isn't soft.
No.
Something, because he's so many concussions, it's like his head cannot take that sort of physical impact anymore. So he's either got to change the way he plays or retire. And I strongly suggest, for his own benefit for the rest of his life, that he strongly considers the retirement part.
Yeah.
Because, mate, you're in your 30s. You've got at least 50 years of existence left.
Yeah. And especially for players, and look, it's the wrong thing to say, but when you're a player that has achieved as many things as Boyd Cordner has, it's not like he should be sitting there saying, man, I had so much more to do in my career that I never got to. It's like, no, you actually did things that most players haven't done in their careers. So just be thankful for what you did get to do. But yeah, that it's just one of those things that stood out for me this weekend and has a little bit during the year. But I think seeing that Canberra player holding his head while he's balancing on one leg, and it's like, but this dude obviously has to leave the field, and they trotted him back into the line. I found it really bad.
Yeah, that was not good. Anything else we want to talk about?
Well, look, we've got about 27 other emails to go through. I reckon we hold them back for the next episode.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's just give this beast a plug, shall we?
Yeah.
You can find us on the socials on Twitter and Instagram at Fergo Freak Pod. We're on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, MySpace.
Yep, MySpace.
Anything else?
LinkedIn. Yeah, I think that's everything.
That's it.
Are we giving Nadine our?
Yeah, we'll give her the keys to the car.
Hey,
we'll give her the keys.
Yeah. Let's let Nadine run the Instagram account. So, if you see anything on the Instagram account that's offensive, that's
not us. Hands in the air. We don't do offensive.
No. In fact, anything you see on my Twitter account is Nadine.
Let's just wash our hands of that straight away. That's good. Yeah, we'll go with that. I was going to say, if you're seeing anything on our Instagram account, that's because Nadine's doing, because I've not been fucking doing any shit.
It's terrible. The funny thing is, we'll sit here and we'll be like, you know what? Put that on the Instagram account. Yeah. And then we don't do it.
Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow comes along and go, I can't be fucked.
I've never even logged into the Instagram account. I don't know. I know you've got the password. I'm sure you've given it to me at one point. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's. Don't know.
It's on my phone. I link between my personal one, which I never use, and that one, which I never use. And I just flick a button to switch between the two. So I don't know what the password is. Yeah,
see, I haven't got an Instagram account at all.
Oh, mate, you're missing out. You've got to get on the gram, man. It's where all the young, hip people are.
The gram. Isn't that how you buy coffee on the Gold Coast? By the gram. You know what? I ran Instagram accounts once upon a time, and it was just fucking full-blown narcissism. Everyone's saying, look at me. It's not my sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, it's not like that now. It's immensely worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, now you get things like a bunch of scantily clad women on there saying, so where do you like to go for your holidays? That's what they want people to talk about, instead of the fact that they're sitting there wearing, a pair of shoelaces for a bikini.
Wait a minute, where do I sign up for this? Hang on.
Because I remember great. I used to go on there, ages ago, and when you went to the search button,
Yeah.
it kind of just showed you highlights from a lot of accounts that either the ones you're following or ones like the one you were following.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden it just shows you all the stuff that's trending, and because there's a lot of female models and stuff like that on there, and a lot of pervy blokes looking for shit, they just
That's what comes up.
All these models have got all these likes and stuff from all these blokes thinking they're going to get their ending. No, mate, it don't work that way.
Yeah.
So I click the search button and go, oh, it's this again. Oh, fucking log out. I'm too old for that shit.
I'll have an account within the next 24 hours.
It's probably already logged. It's probably already clicked in. You've got 3 already now.
Yeah.
There'll be no more podcasts for the next week. You'll be stuck on Instagram.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, that's where we are on the socials. What else is there? I know.
Mm-hmm.
You should all get out there and support one of the longest running independent rugby league content creators there is out there, and that's League Freak. And you go to his Patreon, which is patreon.com/League Freak, and you can give him a few dollars over there, and you might even get a bit of merch depending on how much you throw into the kitty.
Yeah, got more tiers than West Tigers fans, we say. You can there's a mug level, there's t-shirt level, there's a sticker level, and then there's like a couple levels below that. But you just, if you feel like putting a bit of money in, and we all know what it goes to. That sounds too open-ended with you. Lot. I know what you lot are like. It goes towards the website costs, website address, and all that sort of stuff. It literally just goes towards that. It's really, really helpful. So if you want to get involved. And if you want to help the digitization of rugby league history, you go to patreon.com/RL Project. It's the place to go to help build the greatest database of rugby league statistics that has ever been put together in one place. And you know what? We all use it. It's all free. There's no walls. There's no paywalls and everything. You go to rugbyleagueproject.org. You can put in any player's name, any club. Doesn't matter. You'll get the statistics you're after. And that's because of the work that Andrew Ferguson does.
That's brilliant. And better still, you just go over there and put in whatever you want. I don't have tiers because I'm too stupid to figure out how to set them up. So you just put in whatever you feel comfortable with.
$50,000 would be very helpful.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
$100 million, very helpful.
I'd take it.
Yeah, $1, very helpful.
Absolutely, it's all accepted.
Yeah. So and that's really helpful. Andrew does a really great job. We all know that. He gives the statistics out for free. He's not hoarding them. He's not keeping them to himself.
I share. I'm a sharing kind of human.
Exactly.
I'd just like to start something entirely unrelated to all of what we've discussed today.
Yeah.
I've just looked at Twitter and looking in the section that's trending.
Yeah.
And there's a hashtag for a A-League soccer game.
Yeah.
And it pretty much looks like it says Perth well.
Is it Perth Wellington?
Perth v Wellington, but it's PERVWEL.
Nice. Sometimes you look at the trending topics on Twitter and you'd be like, what the fuck is going on? I saw one, I think it was the US, where it was National Horn Day and people were like talking about their horns and stuff like that. It's very strange.
The other thing that's interesting is they've got a MAFB reunion, which I think is, what is that? Married at First something? Is it?
MAFB
reunion?
I don't know what the B would be.
No idea. The odd thing for me is it's promoted by Uncle Toby's.
Oh, really?
Got me beat. I don't know. I've got a rather morbid sort of question to ask you about the stuff that's trending.
Yeah.
In the past, whenever you saw someone's name on there, did you merely go, "Oh shit, did they die?"
Yes, you know what? There's been a couple of them recently. Who was there was someone. There was Jackie Chan not long ago, and it was his birthday. It's a lot of birthdays. Like
Yeah.
Twitter's celebrating a lot of birthdays recently, and so there's been a couple of celebrities where I've gone and had a quick look at the trending topics, and I've seen the name and I've been like, oh no, that's terrible, and gone on and been like, oh, thank goodness they're all right. They're like just 67 or something like that.
Yeah. He just tweeted the fact that he had some Uncle Toby's for breakfast.
Yeah, it's like it's weird because who was the Jeff Goldblum? Remember he used to trend all the time and it was always false.
Yeah, he dies every year.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah. He'll die one day.
People won't believe it.
And he'll be trending and people go, oh, that old chestnut.
Yeah, it's really strange. But yeah, when you see a trending name and you're like, oh no, and then you go to it and, you know, they've got a movie coming out, or it's just like people are appreciating their body work, and
or they've
it's
said
like, oh
something
man,
racist.
thank God. Hey?
Or they've said something racist.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man.
There we go. There's a bit of unrelated chat for you, just to take you out with.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Catch us all next time.